Hi, I'm Liam Dann, New Zealand Herald Business Editor at Large, and welcome to this episode of Money Talks. This is a podcast about money, but we're not going to tell you how to get rich, and we're not going to try and pick the next interest rate move. In this series, I'll be talking to interesting New Zealanders about how money has shaped their lives and what they've learned over the years. For today's podcast, I'm joined by the CEO of ASB Bank and the country's highest paid female CEO, Vittoria Shortt. Kia ora, Vittoria. Welcome to Money Talks.
Kia ora, Liam.
That highest paid title, we threw it in the intro there. Is that something that bothers you, or do you feel sort of proud to have achieved that?
It's definitely not something I think about actually a lot, or even if at all. The days are just filled with other things that just feel important. And so I don't tend to think about that. But the only thing I would say is, there's a lot of commentary around women and women in leadership positions. And it's certainly nice to have some of my female colleagues, reach out and sort of recognise that as a positive thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an unusual thing when you get to a certain level of success in business, something that we don't usually talk about. Suddenly it's published material, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look, let's jump back a bit and talk a bit more about money growing up. What were the first memories you have of money and holding money in your hand?
Okay, so this is going to sound like a plug for ASB, but it is not. It's just I do remember taking my little ASB savings book to Koe Primary School, where I went with my 5 or 10 cents, depending on, I don't know, how good I'd been, for the week, and depositing money. And that is my earliest memory of cash physically in my hands. And also it came with a lot of advice from my mother.
Oh, yeah. So do you think, you've had that sort of sense of being a saver instilled in you from that?
Absolutely. Mum, we had a lot of financial difficulty in my family. And Mum was very focused on saving money. So she encouraged us really early on to basically do two things: work and save.
Wow. Yeah.
So first job at 10, and never looked back.
Yeah. So what did your parents do growing up?
Yeah, so Mum was a teacher.
Yep.
And my dad had a small business.
Right.
And it was the small business side of things that was really problematic and difficult.
Yeah. And was that through the economic challenges of the time kind of thing, or there's big changes in New Zealand and all that sort of stuff?
It's kind of hard to know when you're young and growing up exactly what causes what. You listen to your parents talk around the kitchen table, I guess, and sometimes it's hard to make heads or tails of it. But the thing that I really learnt pretty quickly is how destabilising it is, and how much emotional pressure and stress comes from money decisions, and the things that kind of went from there that happened in our family. And so really early on, it was less about what was going on in the economy or the environment or the business, and it was a lot more around the emotional
as a child,
impact as a child. Yeah,
I bet. And so you're growing up in the Waikato?
No, actually I was in Auckland, but went to university in Waikato.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's of course, the ASB Savings Bank.
Yes.
Did you have one of those little yellow elephants?
I did. Yeah, I had a few, and I possibly could have tucked into them from time to time when I shouldn't have, but, that was half the fun of having a money box. Yeah,
did you get pocket money, or were you working for the pocket money?
Working, so so we didn't tend to, I think, the family had a belief that everyone just had to pitch in, and you don't get paid for pitching in, not in my household growing up. So we sort of divide and conquer on all the jobs and get those done. And I started working when I was 10 with my brother, and we shared a paper round. So it was more saving from money that we earned than anything else. Yeah,
and obviously you're saving some of that by the sound of it, but were the things you saved up for, what were you interested in to spend it on in those days?
Yeah, interesting. So again, sort of influence from Mum. Mum was in the spend half, save half mode. Yep. And so we didn't earn that much. So the spending typically, because we picked our papers up from the local dairy, the spending typically went into lollies at the dairy. Yep. And the saving, it was actually, I was never ever saving for anything in particular. I was always saving because financial independence mattered more to me than anything else, just because of the family situation. Yep.
So having that buffer, knowing the money was there,
absolutely,
giving you some freedom.
Yep.
Sure, yeah. And so at school, did that sort of I guess, understanding of money and finances and where your career is now gone, did that affect your choices at school? Did you study economics and things?
Yeah, so money never impacted my subject selection. What impacted that more than anything else is what I enjoyed.
Right.
And I'm sort of a believer in the more you enjoy something, the more you work at it, the more you work at it, the better you get, the more you enjoy it. And it just sort of becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so the subjects that I was good at were economics and accounting.
Right, so you leant into them.
I did, yeah.
Were there other things, like hobbies and things that could have been a different pathway?
So I've shared this story before. If I wasn't a banker, I'd be a farmer.
Right.
I love the outdoors, and I just think that's one of New Zealand's, one of the beautiful parts about the country. There are so many mountains to hike, beaches to enjoy. You know, it's a big part of, I think, Kiwis and who we are and what we do.
Yeah. But at university, you did a Bachelor of Management Studies, is that right?
That's right.
Accounting, finance. So you really were immersed in that world right from the get-go.
Yes. And I started, how I sort of started down that path actually was Dad's influence. He sort of looked at my grades and what I was enjoying at school, and he made a couple of suggestions around, you know, what I might want to study. And one of those things that he said to me that I kind of grabbed onto was, if you choose accounting, you can work anywhere in the world. And I thought, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So that sort of started me off down an accounting path. But interestingly, I started with accounting, then I did my first finance paper. I loved the finance paper, so I kept doing more of those. Then I did a strategy paper, loved that. So I kept on going down, picking up a whole lot more strategy papers. And weirdly, my career started to mirror that.
Right, yeah.
When I started work.
Yeah.
So it's all about following the things that you love doing.
Yep. Was your first job out of uni, was that Deloitte?
That's right, doing auditing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that was the more of the accounting side of
Absolutely,
things.
and the travel the world kind of thinking,
that's right.
which I didn't do.
Right, so you didn't get a post in Singapore or whatever?
I didn't, actually. I was really enjoying the work that I was doing in New Zealand, so I stayed in New Zealand for quite some time in my early career.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I ask people who go into Deloitte or one of the big four, you know, you weren't tempted to sort of, you can build a whole career through those, that they look after people and they carry them right through. You weren't sort of sucked into the machine of the accounting world like that?
Well, what happened was, first off, you know, fantastic firm, incredible opportunities. And so one of those was I quite quickly moved into the corporate finance team, really enjoyed that work. So at the time we were doing commercial litigation, so expert evidence for commercial litigation, due diligence, valuations of businesses, and so M&A kind of activity. And I loved the M&A work I was doing. And that's when I decided to go in-house M&A for Carter Holt Harvey.
Right.
So again, I was just sort of following my nose in terms of the work that I most enjoyed.
Yeah, that's an interesting company. What era of Carter Holt were you in?
Chris Liddell was the CEO.
Yeah. And so when did, I'm just trying to think when Graham Hart got involved, was he?
I had left by the time.
Right, and that was sort of would have been a whirlwind hitting at that point. But.
That's right. So I think that was because I left Carter Holt in 2002. That's when I went to Australia. So I think Graham came not long after that. Actually.
Yeah, but I remember, Chris Liddell, we were dealing with a wall of wood and,
yes.
You know, there was a lot of challenges even then, you know, and just getting the mix right.
That's right.
So I guess that's a very real world kind of gritty sort of thing to get your teeth into.
Fantastic. So I started doing, as I say, in-house M&A, so the buying and the selling of the businesses, and there was quite a lot of that occurring at that time under Chris's leadership. But then I always wanted to stay on and see how those businesses went. So I always became fascinated in the strategy behind the merger or the divestment.
Yep.
And so I wanted to get more into, rather than buying and selling businesses, I wanted to get more into understanding how they ran.
Yeah.
So I asked if I could get out of the M&A team, and I went into the sawmilling division.
Right, yeah.
And terrific role there. It's as gritty as you get.
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, it's deconstruction manufacturing. That's really challenging work. And, you know, and also saw that sort of the ups and the downs, the periods of making cash losses, making difficult decisions like shutting down plants, you know, which could be the only main employer in a small town.
Yeah.
I saw how people led through that. So it was my first foray into business business decisions.
Yeah, quite high level. I mean, management at a reasonably high level there where you're actually having to make big calls.
Absolutely, and it really lit a fire for me.
Yeah. So how long did you stay before you moved into banking?
So that was, I'm going to say 2000, I think I'm going to get my dates right, it's a wee while back. So 2002, I stayed there until then. And then my husband, he's a Kiwi, he's off a farm down south of Auckland, and he had finished what he was doing, sold his business, and we decided that we'd go to Australia.
Yeah.
And when we got to Australia, he was running a business over there. And I honestly was looking through ads thinking, I know I don't want to go back into M&A.
Yeah.
I want to stay in business. And there was just an ad for the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. They were looking for someone who had my skill set.
Yep.
And I thought, it's a big company. It's got lots of different divisions, lots of opportunities. And so I'll give it a go.
Yeah. And it's obviously worked out. You've stayed a long time in banking then, it must be 20 years.
More than
20 years.
Yes.
I mean, to have that sort of success in the banking sector, something's obviously gelled. What would you say is the reason for your success in that particular industry?
You got to love what you do.
Yeah.
I think that's the starting point with everything. And then people sometimes look at you a bit sideways. It's like, you love banking, and I do. I genuinely do.
Well, I guess the reputation is it might be a bit grey.
It's not that at all. Firstly, I just think about the impact that we can have in, powering up economies, helping businesses, helping people through the difficult times, is really important. It's not always, about the easy times. Bringing new, exciting innovations to market, working with technology.
Yep.
There's just so many different skill sets in a bank.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look, there's always a lot going on.
There is.
We don't need to get too into it, but you're involved at the political end as well.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, certainly, there's plenty going on in New Zealand, but in Australia, I always sort of make this observation that they're actually even tougher on the banks over there, I think, in terms of the way the media gets stuck into banks and the robustness of the debate over there is pretty intense. How did you find all that?
I think that's Australia generally, to be honest. I don't think that's specific to the banking sector. I think there's a lot of scrutiny in Australia. The media, you've got some pretty famous mastheads over in Australia owned by some pretty famous people, and the scrutiny is high. And I would say most industries would say the scrutiny is high on them, not just banking.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to ask, because you'd had that experience in Australia, do you think Australians have a different attitude to money than Kiwis? We're seen as fairly similar personalities, but maybe Australians are a bit bolder and brasher. Yeah,
I think there's some similarities. I think one thing that I'm really envious of, though, when I think about Australia is the superannuation part of that system. I think the ability to help people save for their futures, and then the ability of those organisations to invest those monies, well, I think that's really setting up the country for success. So I would call out that as being something that's very positive about the Australian system. Yeah, I mean, often New Zealanders are looking across the Tasman, looking at higher wages, higher productivity, and, feeling a bit jealous. We can look at the iron ore or whatever, but it seems to me that strength in the financial sector, which is sort of underpinned by that savings regime, must be a huge factor in Australia's ability to sort of weather some of the ups and downs a bit better than New Zealand. Yeah, I mean, does. It's a bigger economy. It's got those sort of and it has natural advantages, obviously, that are really important for powering up the economy. But a lot of my friends will say, there's great wages over there. There's a lot of tax over there too. So I don't think, and I think that's a very important dynamic. A lot of New Zealanders want the benefits of the infrastructure that they see in Australia, but they don't like the idea of the tax that actually has to pay for that. Yeah. When you go over there and you're paying stamp duty on a lot of things. Yeah, and you got capital gains tax. Taxes. Yeah, so you can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to decide there. Yeah. And obviously it's a hard call to make for someone about a compulsory super. I think Paul Keating did it in Australia, but it's saying, well, no, you're going to pay a bit more now, and businesses are going to pay a bit more now, and it might hurt, but we'll have some trillions in the bank later on. Yes, I agree. It is a very difficult thing to introduce, but again, you can't move forward without making some of these, the tougher decisions that set you up for the future.
Yeah. I suppose I better ask this because I'll get in trouble if I don't, but do you think New Zealand is well served by the Australian-owned banks? What do you make of the sort of controversy around the idea that we don't have enough competition or that we don't have enough control of our own banking sector?
Look, I think there's some absolute benefits for being owned by large Australian banks, and I think those are not well understood, and I try and explain them as much as I can. Firstly, accessing capital markets, and because, New Zealanders like to borrow more than they save, ASB's got to go offshore and raise billions of dollars in the open markets. And, having the Australian-owned banks behind you is an important dynamic there, and that adds real value to the New Zealand marketplace, in my mind. The other things would be just the level of investment that the larger banks can make in Australia means that we get huge benefits of things like cybersecurity, for example.
Yeah.
So we're able to tap into
the technological
amazing capability, again, that I believe has real value. So a lot of benefits, I would say, but bring on the competition.
Sure. Okay, I've got a few sort of quick fire questions here. What would you say is the poorest you've ever been?
Oh, I think, as I sort of alluded to, growing up at home when we were in real financial difficulty. Yeah.
So that was a sense of knowing that maybe other kids had some more money going on in the household?
Oh, it was, I remember going up to the dairy, didn't have any food in the house, and we had a whole bunch of bottles. And you know how you could go and take, showing my age, you could take glass bottles up to the dairy and you could swap them out for something.
Yeah, a few cents, 5 cents.
So I remember dinner that night was taking the glass bottles up to the dairy and getting some sausages and a few other bits and bobs, and that was dinner.
Wow, yeah. So that is pretty close to the line, isn't it?
We had tricky times.
Yeah, tough. You've already answered really are you a spender or a saver, but do you sort of feel like you're naturally good with money, or is that, I guess that's, as you say, come from that background?
I would say Mum's early focus on saving was really positive, but I would say understanding more about how to manage your financial affairs through being in a bank absolutely has been beneficial.
Yeah.
So, when I went into banking over in Australia and I learnt this whole thing about compulsory super, I'm like, why was I not doing that earlier?
Yeah.
Things like that. Yep. Shape.
Yeah.
You learn a lot from being in a bank.
So if you had to pick a piece of advice to give people listening, just to sort of have a better sense of finances and money, what would be your top piece of advice for people?
Yeah, get some advice actually. And there are so many places to get some great help for managing your financial affairs. And don't pick it all off at once. You can actually make some small changes that can really make a difference. So, we'll talk about at ASB, our customers have saved millions and millions of dollars through Save the Change. It's a tiny way that you can create a good habit to start getting some money in a separate account.
Sure, yeah. I always sort of ask, what's the most indulgent purchase you've ever made?
I feel like anything to do with a house. I think the house seems to be this emotional excuse for, I don't know, creating a really nice home, I think is a biggie.
And they do suck a lot of money.
They do suck a lot of money. And so when you're doing a renovation and you can kind of choose between different things, I think homes are a really important place. So
sure. I mean, coming from that difficult background you talked about, when you got, say, into Deloitte or into some of these management jobs, was there a moment where you finally thought, I've actually got a bit of financial security, and you felt like you could splash out a bit?
I felt like a millionaire when I started working. My first job, I've saved my letter.
Yeah.
My first, I think it was my first proper job, and my salary was $23,500.
Yeah.
And I just thought I'd made it.
Yeah.
I really did. So yes, it came with some financial freedom. So the first thing that was on my list was a car. So yeah.
Nice. So you're a car person?
I'm becoming less of a car person, I think. I've just got my first EV.
Oh yeah. Cool.
So I'm really enjoying that, I have to say.
Yeah. Similar note, but are there things that you still dream of buying but you just haven't got there for whatever reason, time, or they're on your life goals purchase-wise?
Yeah, I think, we've got 2 young sons, and for me, family holidays, they're my best childhood memories. They're my best early adult memories. They're my best parenting memories, if you like. And so at the top of my list for things, A, the home, and then B, travel.
Sure.
Travel with family.
Yeah. And then I guess that is finding the time to go for a decent length of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, sometimes just small trips can be fun as well. Like we've had plenty of long weekends supporting the kids with sport or something that have been a lot of fun as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of about, I guess, lifestyle, but Prime Minister Christopher Luxon I think he slightly misunderstood the question personally, but he reckoned he spent $60 a week on groceries when he was asked last year in the election campaign. Do you have a big grocery shop? What kind of grocery shopper are you?
Okay, we spend a lot of money on food and a couple of things there. I've got a rower and a basketballer. So the basketballer is 6'8". Rower is 6'5". Food in our house is a very big deal.
Wow. And it probably doesn't last long.
It doesn't last very long. It flies out. And so our food bill is, I would just call it substantial. And now they may not be living at home, but we're still supporting them financially. Yeah. So it's still substantial.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would say, though, is our food bill is coming down because we're eating just a little bit less meat, actually.
Right, yeah.
Just as change things up a bit.
Lifestyle health thing.
Yeah.
Do you ever still imagine winning lotto?
Oh, I used to dream about that as a child.
Yeah.
I really did. And we used to watch it as a family on TV.
Did you actually buy tickets or just dream?
When I was young, Dad definitely did buy tickets, and I used to dream non-stop about what I would do with all that money. Today I don't sort of dream about that anymore. But you know what? We do buy lotto tickets every now and then.
Yeah. Just for fun.
Yeah.
I ask it because, sometimes I sort of imagine winning a smaller amount. I actually don't know if I want to win $100 million or something like that. It sort of kind of turns your life upside down. But
yes, plenty of those stories.
Look, the question here, and you sort of answered it through the other questions, but is making money important in itself, or has that been a byproduct of the success? Yeah. It's
never about that. I think, and I always sort of, provide if anyone ever asks me about that, I always go back to choose things that you're passionate about and that you love doing. Don't go and choose something because it pays. You don't want to be getting lots of money and then hating your job every day. So that would be awful. So, and actually, interesting fact for you, learning good savings behaviours is 5 times more impactful than a pay increase.
Wow, yeah.
And the whole reason for that is because many people go and get a pay increase and then just spend that pay increase. And so they're actually no better off than they were before. Yeah. And so savings habits are actually the most important thing of all.
Yeah, I mean, if I could give you the power to be in charge of the country for the day, Prime Minister for a day, is there something that you would most want to do to sort of, I guess, transform New Zealand, deal with some social inequity and all that sort of stuff?
I mean, there's two long-term things. We need to get education right and we need to get housing right. So those are 2 long-term ones. But if I chose something that was near-term, easier to do, in my view, and could really help with productivity, I think we could really lean into digital identity as an enabler for the digital economy, and to improve the safety.
Right.
Because at the moment we've got a lot of issues with frauds and scams and and cyber issues.
So by digital identity, you mean how we
having a safe way. It's having a safe way for people to have their information, and then they can permission it for someone to use.
Right. Yeah.
And that would also get rid of at the moment for financial crime reasons. Everyone has to be ID'd and V'd a million times over by lots of different businesses, and all of those businesses are collecting information, they're storing that information, they've got people undertaking all of those activities. It's just really inefficient. Yeah. So big productivity win, big safety improvement. Yep. That would be something near-term and practical.
Yeah. It's interesting how much anyone involved in banking I come across seems to have become a real techie these days. It really is at the cutting edge of so much of our tech discussions.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's, these days, if you're involved in a business like ours, you really have to understand technology and how to harness it. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, what we've been through in the last few years has created this cost of living squeeze. We've seen all this inflation. Has that created extra pressure on the banking system in terms of how people are looking at it, how concerned they are about what's going on? How do you view banking's role in this whole sort of economic cycle?
Yeah, some of the really interesting things, before we think about the recent cost of living pressures, one thing that's been really helpful for a lot of people in New Zealand is actually our debt levels have been more manageable.
Yeah.
And also the government support during COVID really we saw a lot of balances and savings build up. So we monitor financial wellbeing in an aggregated way across all of our customers. And interestingly, if we have a look at where New Zealanders are now, we're still at higher levels than when we went into COVID.
Right,
so we've got higher financial wellbeing generally than pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And another sort of interesting element, I guess, is that the majority of our customers are making big trade-offs, by the way. So it's not that people aren't making sacrifices, they definitely are. But we're supporting around 400 customers who need real help. But these days we've got so many different ways to help support those customers. So we're actually surprised how well Kiwis and Kiwi businesses are faring right now.
Yeah, we haven't seen the kind of, like, after the GFC, there was a big rise in mortgage defaults and things like that. I mean, it's obviously tough. We're not saying it isn't.
It is tough.
And it's building. But, just finally, I guess, what do you feel optimistic enough that New Zealand can get through this cycle, whether it's November or February or next May or whenever we sort of can say that it's turned?
Yeah, I do feel optimistic about it. I mean, I'm an optimist by nature, by the way. Yeah. But again, I feel optimistic. Why? Because I think we're working better together than ever before. Debt levels are lower. And I think that's really meant that there's more resilience in the system than there was leading into the GFC, as an example.
Yeah.
And we've just got more ways of helping our customers. So, we've got an enormous balance sheet at ASB. We've got a lot of runway in terms of supporting our customers through. And in fact, during COVID, we grew a lot of market share in business lending because we decided that we wanted to really support businesses through that period.
Yeah.
So with a really strong balance sheet like what we've got, we can help people.
That's great, Vittoria. Thanks for that, and thanks for chatting on Money Talks.
Great. Thank you, Liam.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Money Talks. If you want to get in touch, drop me a line at liam.dan@nzme.co.nz. And you can read more from me at nzherald.co.nz. Thanks to my producer, Ethan Sills, and sound engineer, Leanne McDonald. Follow Money Talks on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes available every Thursday.